A new era in afternoons on KTAR. It's Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos, hour number 1. And we are going to kick it off with something you've been hearing on the radio station today. It is a special KTAR news series, Youth on Edge. So what are we trying to accomplish this week? Well, we're going to examine mental health. We're going to examine behavioral issues among our teens and young adults. And we're going to kick it off right here at 4:06 and 33 seconds on the show.
Yeah. And, Gaydos, I got to tell you, I became aware through a variety of other interviews. I saw talk about this book. The author is Jonathan Haidt, and the book is called The Anxious Generation.
The Anxious Generation.
How the great rewiring of childhood is causing an episode of mental illness.
Oh, gosh.
And a lot of research went into this book.
Yeah.
And joining us right now is, he's the chief researcher for the book, The Anxious Generation, Zach Rausch. Zach, thanks for making time for us today.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for having me on, and hello to all your listeners.
Yeah, I think this is a really important book, and we're doing a whole series about youth on edge, and I think there's a lot in your book, The Anxious Generation, that kind of ties into that. And I know that you and Mr. Haidt kind of, you work together on researching and finding out how kids growing up with a screen, a phone in their face has really impacted them. What was the most surprising finding for you?
Well, so I think, there's a ton of data that went into this book, but if I can focus on just one aspect of the story, it's that before 2010, rates of adolescent mental health problems were pretty steady. And then just around 2012, 2013, that all starts to change, and the mental health of young people really starts to fall off a cliff. We see rises in anxiety and depression, and even self-harm and suicide rates. And it started in the early 2010s, and it's continued to rise through this day. And this is happening in many countries all around the world. And this has been, it was really shocking to see this over and over again. And what we came to as a conclusion is that we've been overprotecting kids in the real world, but underprotecting them online. And so it's the two of those forces together that we really think has been driving this crisis. And I could talk more about that, but that's the main thesis.
Okay, so what do we do about that? If there are parents out there that are listening and they've got teenagers, you've got the research that says, hey, let's try and fix this.
Yeah. So the big idea here, and what we're finding again and again, is that teens don't even like being on social media for the most part. We're only on it because everybody else is on it.
Yeah.
And parents feel the same way, that you don't want to give your kid a smartphone too early or get them on social media, but all their friends are on it. And so everybody is trapped. And so what we need to do is, and what we propose in the book, is we need to work together. And so, if you're a parent and you haven't given your kids a smartphone yet, team up with other parents of your kids' friends and decide we're going to delay until age 14. And so that's a big proposal for us, delaying till 14, delaying social media till 16, and then pushing for schools to really go phone free, to get the phones out of the school day, because it not only is impacting mental health, but it's impacting learning and test scores. And so delaying is really the biggest thing that we propose. And at the same time, we want to start to give kids back a little bit more independence and responsibility in the real world, where, we need to have more time to, if they're younger, to play and to be with other kids, because that's in the real world. That's really where we learn to grow and develop competency.
This is Zach Rausch joining us right now, chief researcher for the book, The Anxious Generation. A lot of folks are talking about this book. It's making an impact, not just because your cohort, Mr. Haidt, appears to be on every TV station on the planet. I saw him on Bill Maher over the weekend and everywhere else. But I'm curious, as in the research you found, how basically smartphones, you guys use the term, they're rewiring the brains. Yeah. Is it equal between girls and boys? Does one side suffer more than the other, or differently, shall I say?
It's a great question. And what we find is that what's happened to boys and girls is they've been impacted differently, but in many ways they've ended up in the same place. And what I mean by that is, so girls in the early 20s, so both boys and girls before 2010, you might have had a flip phone, which was totally fine. You can text other people. You didn't really have high-speed internet or unlimited data plans or an Instagram account. By 2015, you had a smartphone, Instagram, high-speed internet, unlimited data. And what happened was now we were able to take a portal into the internet in our pockets all the time, 24/7. Now, girls went to social media mostly. They went Instagram and then TikTok later on. And boys went more towards video games. And just the amount of time that has been spent on our devices now are upwards of 7 to 9 hours on average per day.
Whoa.
So it's an enormous amount of time. And this is the key idea of the book, is that we're displacing sleep, we're displacing time with friends, time with family, time to pay attention. And what we're really calling for is that you can't grow up in the virtual world. You need to grow up on Earth and with other people to develop those skills. And so both boys and girls have been impacted differently, but in many ways we're ending up with the same problem.
Wow.
Zach Rausch is joining us, chief researcher for the incredible book, The Anxious Generation. Okay, so what are kids seeing that give them anxiety? What causes a child who now has this, this mechanism in the palm of their hands? What is it? Is it what they're seeing? Is it what they're doing that is causing them anxiety?
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways that these devices are driving problems. One is just the simple fact that kids are retreating into the virtual world and not engaging enough in the real world, which makes it harder to interact with other kids if you're already a little bit shy or nervous. So that's one way that this happens, is that it's an escape from your emotions. But a second thing is also that if you think about what social media has become, so if you are a teen girl and or even a teen boy, you're an adolescent, you're going through puberty, and you're very concerned about who's in the in group, who's in the out group. And what happens is social media after 2010 turned into something where you are platforming yourself and you are putting out pictures and videos to be judged by others, to be metrics with likes, retweets, that is now, so you're performing to an audience. And that kind of constant performance and constantly being watched and seen, that is really toxic to, anybody going through puberty, an already very vulnerable time.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, this is a fascinating discussion, and I got to believe there's a lot of parents out there kind of probably nodding along, by the way, getting, somebody's finally putting words to these feelings. Somebody's finally explaining what we're going through. Do you have a quick second? Could you hold on 1 second? We have a few more questions for you. If you could just hold on, we want to come back to you. Thank you so much, Zach. It's a special series we're doing. It's called Youth on Edge.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And Zach Rausch, chief researcher for the book, The Anxious Generation, is with us. We're back with him.
We've got teen violence. We've got anxiety. We've got depression. We have kids committing suicide. And we decided that for the rest of this week, we'll hold this KTAR News series, Youth on Edge, and we'll discuss healthy relationships that can exist between teens and social media. We're going to give tips to parents on here are some ways that you can get your kid off the phone. Here are some ways that if you think your child has anxiety or depression, we'll try and get you some help.
Here.
And right now we're in the middle of a great conversation with the chief researcher for the book, The Anxious Generation, Zach Rausch.
Zach, I literally could probably talk to you for a couple hours, so I'm trying to condense some of this because I just find it fascinating. And I really think that you and Jonathan Haidt have really you've touched on something. I think there's a conversation, I get a sense, going on right now, especially amongst parents who are understanding and realizing there's something different going on. They notice their kids are changing, and maybe not necessarily for the better. When I think about this anxious generation, when we think about these kids, I thought one of the the points that I found interesting was, do you think we're going to get to a point where I'm going to make an analogy I don't think you made in the book. Tackle football in high school, where people of certain means, people of certain education stop letting their kids play tackle football because they knew it was dangerous for them. They didn't want their kid to get a head injury or whatever it might be. Do you think we'll get to the point where there'll be a socioeconomic difference between, dare I say, more educated parents who say, I'm not giving my kid a smartphone, I'm not giving them access to apps, and you'll see this divide?
Well, what's pretty unfortunate is that that's already happening.
Oh.
So the digital divide used to be that kids from lower income neighborhoods and more rural neighborhoods, right, you didn't have access to the internet. It was harder to get a computer. And to some extent, that's still true. But the real digital divide that's happening now is that most of those kids now have smartphones that are accessing and spending way more time online, are way more vulnerable. And when you have, only one parent in the home, it's harder to keep tabs on this. These apps and these devices are designed to keep you on for way longer than you want to be.
Yeah.
And so this is happening. And we see it with some of the tech executives. Many of them send their kids to non-tech schools.
I've heard about this.
So,
Yeah.
Going the opposite way.
This
Yeah,
has
if you
been
work at
known
Apple
for
or
a long
Google, your
time.
kid doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
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 How many hours is okay for a kid on the smartphone?
Like a safe number.
Is there a safe number?
Yeah. See, this is it's an important question, and it's going to vary, family to family and kid to kid. But what's important to note, again, is that in part it depends on what they're doing and what they're using. And so social media platforms, and especially a smartphone, they're designed in ways, again, that's not designed to keep kids. They're designed to keep kids hooked. They're designed to keep users hooked because the user is the product, because the advertiser, they're selling attention to advertisers.
Right.
And so they're trying to keep users on as long as possible. And so what I really would recommend is mostly we want to delay smartphones, social media platforms, other kinds of shared experiences, watching movies together. The desktop, laptop computers are generally much better. The problem is the 24/7 access to a smartphone that's in your pocket, that's pinging you all day long and pulling you away from your friends, from your family. That's the problem.
Wow.
And that's what I think we need to focus on.
Zach, again, like I said, we could talk to you for hours. We sincerely appreciate you making time for us. Congratulations to you and to Jonathan Haidt on the book. I know that it started some great conversations, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. And this is a great program, so keep it up.
We'll do our best. All right. That's Zach Rausch, chief researcher for the book, The Anxious Generation, joining us on our KTAR special series, Youth on Edge. The numbers are what they are. And, I can't get away from something Zach said, that when you look at like a graph of teen happiness, let's use that, it was cruising right along. Everything was fine. Until you get to like 2010s.
We know what happened.
What changed?
Yeah,
like literally what changed in teens' lives?
Smartphone.
The only thing, the smartphone is and then social media, and you see their mental health, their anxiety levels, you just see it fall off the page.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. We basically have been conducting, and I'm paraphrasing some of what the author used in the book. We're conducting a social experiment on an entire generation of children. Gee, what would it be like if they grew up with a screen in their face?
It's going to be interesting to see if parents get their kids off of their smartphone.
It's hard.
Of course it is, because a lot of us, we always wanted to kind of track our kids. That's why we gave them the smartphone, and I think there's a reason for that. They know that. Well, I can't go there. Because they'll know.
Keep an eye on me.
And I probably shouldn't go there. But if I didn't have this phone, I'd probably go there. So that's why a lot of parents, like it. They can track their kid. But there's so many things, about that phone that it's just bad for you.
Well, and one of the lines that he used, and I know that we've heard before, is And I don't think there's an argument. And I'm not saying every parent out there, but I think most parents might nod to this statement. We have overprotected our kids in the real world. We have underprotected our kids in the virtual world.
It's a great point.
Right?
I think the other thing...
Wear a helmet. Make sure you got knee pads and don't be more than 6 feet away from me to save you from the real world out there. Oh, here's a smartphone. Enjoy the internet.
I also think our kids don't get a ton of exercise. And exercise is the best thing for you. If you have anxiety or depression and you really... want to better yourself, go get some exercise. Because a lot of people say, hey, it's almost the same as taking a pill. I got no problem with taking pills either. I'm saying that we have kids that lay around on their phones all day, and we wonder why they have anxiety and depression. They don't move.
5 to 8 hours a day.
They don't move their bodies.
Sedentary.
They don't move.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.